Today we've got a great malicious compliance story against a company that wants to play hot or cold on whether or not you can work from home. We'll get to that in a bit, but first, free advice is seldom cheap. I work for my country's customs administration. Me and a colleague are responsible for all import-related inquiries within a certain geographic area. Me handling private imports, while he's in charge of commercial business imports. If you import something into my nation as a business, you have to input a ton of information into a centralized system, which then calculates how much you owe the government in import fees and VAT. Companies that are engaged in importing goods usually do the aforementioned administrative tasks either in-house or hire a forwarding agent. The process is fairly complicated, so there are various ways my colleague tries to help businesses that haven't gotten the hang of it yet, especially when they're newly formed and quite small. My colleague gets a call. Calls are always put on speaker so there's another person who can confirm what is being said. From what I can only describe as the most obnoxious woman I have ever had the misfortune of hearing. This woman explains without even a greeting that she's opened some sort of thrift store for small trinkets relating to crystal healing. No joke, that's the type of shop she opened. She then explains that she's ordered a rather large amount of merchandise from abroad, and now wants us to make the necessary system entries into our system. My colleague is nice. Very nice. After confirming in our database that this is the first time the woman makes a business import, he kindly does it for her on his computer while explaining the whole procedure to her. The whole brouhaha takes about 90 minutes. After everything is done, he tells her that next time she will have to do it herself or hire a forwarding agent. The woman just says that she'll be expecting the bill for the import duties in the mail and hangs up. 1 month goes by, another call from the obnoxious woman. This time, she bluntly states that the next import is due and that she has another order for my colleague. My colleague, still with a voice like honey, explains to the woman that this time he won't be able to oblige. He explains that last time was to show her how it works, and that he would be happy to give her an industry site listing the various forwarding agents who can help her. Unfortunately, it doesn't go any further, as the woman immediately cuts my colleague off. She informs him that she knows the law and is thus aware that he's required to help her fill in the forms, whether he wants to or not. My colleague obliges. After another 90 minutes, he wishes her a nice day and tells her that the bill will be coming in the mail again. After that, my colleague takes a deep breath and opens a form on his computer I haven't seen before. Seeing my confusion, he proceeds to tell me what the form is for. Apparently, the Customs Administration is indeed required to make the system entries for businesses if asked. However, in order to not interfere with the free market, and probably as not to incur the wrath of the forwarding agent mafia, the Customs Administration can charge businesses for the time our employees spend on such requests. My colleague then shows me the fee table, and my jaw drops through the floor, while my eyebrows visit the back of my head. The fee is charged for every 15 minutes of work, and makes the hourly fee of the greediest forwarding agent look like a bargain. My colleague prints out a single bill containing the import fees as well as the charge for his time spent on the woman's request, the charge being higher than the import fees, and drops it into the mail. What happened next was handled by a different office, so I'll have to summarize. Woman complains that charging her for my colleague's work is illegal and is shut down because it's perfectly legal. Woman then complains that she didn't know about the law and is shut down because me and my colleague confirmed that she said she knew the law. Woman then pays up. She never called my colleague again. So did she never call OP's colleague again because her business folded? Or because she just stopped importing? I'd love to know what happened to her crystal healing thrift shop. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you enjoy awesome stories of malicious compliance, why not hit that subscribe button down below? That said, our next story is, won't pay for my hotel? Okay, I'll drag your name through the mud and you'll pay for a more expensive hotel. I promise I am the least petty person you'll meet, but this ask just took me over the edge. I work for a very large company, make very good money and work long hours often, which up until this point I've been totally fine doing. Night meetings until 10 p.m? Fine. Drive 2 hours to major plant multiple times a week? Alrighty. But this past week, we had a global supplier team fly in from Japan. FaceTime at the plant is incredibly important. This means I need to be at the plant every single day for the next 2.5 weeks. I have two bosses, a direct boss man and the big boss lady. We'll call them Joe and Jill. When discussing this trip from our global counterparts, $25,000 each person, Joe and I talked to Jill about spending a couple of nights in a local hotel so we could cut back on driving. She said, "That's not necessary, you guys can just drive. I'll approve one night at a hotel so you can do relationship building with the Japan team." I might have lost y'all already with the crazy hours and long driving, but I could maybe get on board with this if it wasn't for Tuesday mornings. Tuesday mornings, we have a couple critical global calls at the plant, and with the Japan team in town, we should really be there in person for collaboration. Myself, Joe, and Jill all agree on this. I pushed back on Jill and mentioned the Tuesday morning early calls. No dice. Y'all, the meetings are at 6 a.m. On top of this, we have Monday night meetings till 9:30 p.m. So I'd have to try to quickly fall asleep after the night meeting, then wake up at 3:30 and leave before 4 to be there on time. Driving 2 hours in the dead of night in January in Wisconsin. After maybe 5 hours of sleep if I'm lucky, there are 3 Tuesday mornings with the Japan team in town. So what did I do? I booked hotels Monday night anyway. Nice ones. Then proceeded to tell everyone that I'd be local on Monday nights for relationship building. "That's cool that the company's helping you cut back on driving." I said, "Nah, they wouldn't pay, but that's fine. I'm just paying out of pocket." I was honest, professional, but not shy that the company was not paying for this. I knew this wouldn't look good. The first Monday night, my poor Joe was getting ready for the trek home and said, "Hey, don't stay too late, it's a long drive." And I comfortably said, "Actually, I got a local hotel, so I'm 10 minutes down the road, but drive safe." The longest, pregnantest pause. But Jill said we can't stay local while the Japan team's in town." I said, "Nah." She said she wouldn't pay for it, which is fine. I'm just going to pay for it out of my own pocket. Y'all, the pause got longer. 404 does not compute. "Are you visiting a local friend or something?" I said, "Nope, just for work. I just found it to be a safety concern to drive a night after just a few hours of sleep, so I paid for it out of pocket. Oh, and I told the Japan team we can get dinner a few nights on Monday since I'll be local." What the freak is happening? But Jill said no. Well, I can talk to Jill and see if we can cover it under company expenses since it's work related. "Have you booked yet?" I say, "Whatever you think is right." And yep, it's booked and non-refundable. The next day, I got an email from Jill informing me that if I felt so strongly that it was a safety concern to stay local on Mondays, to expense the 3 hotel days through the system retroactively. The same way I would if I forgot to pay with my company card. I 100% knew that they wouldn't make me pay what should be a company expense or punish me for making a good safety choice. Joe gets to stay local for the next 2 Mondays too. The sugar on top? Every time I drive to and from the plant, they pay me about $120 in miles. They could have literally booked me a cheap hotel for the same price. Instead, they'll be paying for my $220 a night in hotels of my choice, which I specifically picked in a fun area and upgraded to get a crap ton of rewards points. Don't cheap out on your invaluable employees. Considering everything that OP's doing here, they were basically giving their entire 24-hour day to this company. So yeah, getting them the hotel is like the least they could do. Our next story is getting paid to play video games. I had a job years ago at a contractor that I hated. It was 2 years of my life I will never get back. They kept promising me raises and a bonus, but they never really materialized. I actually did quit once because my wife was going to do a short-term program across the country. We were looking to start over and we were just going to move there. They begged me to stay and said they would pay for flights and expenses. I eventually agreed. However, later found out that they took those expenses out of my bonus. My boss, who's made 5 times more than me, would always complain about how expensive I was. I made $45,000 a year. They kept pressuring me to do bigger jobs that I wasn't trained for, and some ended badly. Finally, I had enough, and I was done with those jerks. I was able to find another job, my current one now, and I put in my notice. My new boss wanted me to start on the 1st of the month, which was about a week and a half notice. I had no problem with this, but my old boss wasn't having it. He insisted on 2 weeks, which, with the weekends, are closer to 2.5 weeks. I ended up starting on the 7th of the month. The only problem was that by the 1st, I'd already handed over all of my existing work and literally had no active projects. Other than answering the phone and sending out people for quick service calls, I had nothing to do. I spent those few days taking extra long lunches, playing video games, and even going to a local park and taking a nap. On my final day, my boss wasn't even in the office, so I never even said goodbye to him. I said bye to a few friends, had a 10-minute meeting with HR for an exit interview, and never looked back. Bottom line, when stuff like this goes down, just try to make sure to get everything in writing. I think that's the most invaluable thing you can do in a lot of situations. Our next story is pre-COVID, no working from home, it'll cost you if you do. During COVID, please work from home. So I've been at my place of work, very large corporation, for 5 years now, and before I started, I have them on the lowdown on my disabilities. And yes, I will have more sick days than most, but I made clear from before the start and throughout that some days I won't be well enough to travel to the office, but will be well enough to work from home. Due to the business ops, all staff are provided a laptop, which you can plug in at any desk or work remotely on visits or even home. My managers didn't trust people to do work from home, and when it inevitably happened a few months in, I let them know that I'm up for doing my work as usual, no problem, but I won't be able to physically commute to the office today. Just to note that all my work was all business admin on a computer, so I could perform my duties to the full same standard wherever I was. My managers told me if I wasn't well enough to attend the site, then I'm clearly not well enough to work. So I had to take a sick day or else admit I am well enough to work, and therefore well enough to attend the site and get in the car now. They were adamant, despite my explanations proving otherwise, that it was all or nothing. I didn't want to take a sick day, as even though the first X amount were paid, scheme subsidized by the government, you only got so many per year before you didn't get any pay. But they told me not to work again by phoning me when I logged in anyway, just to set my out-of-office auto-reply on and reschedule a couple of meetings, which were happening virtually anyway. So I took the day off, enjoying my rest and feeling much better as the day went on. So this happened a few times, and I keep complaining and even bring it to HR and senior managers, but apparently it was my manager's discretion, so it wouldn't help me. My days added up, and sure enough, the first 2 years of my employment, I lost a few hundred due to too many sick days when I wasn't actually sick, just unable to physically get to work. Then COVID happened. No one was allowed to attend site. Everyone had to work from home. But due to all my complaining over the last 2 years, I had heaps of evidence in writing from my managers and essentially backed up my seniors in HR that I was not allowed to ever work from home. So I didn't. They were not happy, but I held my ground. My partner was in her 3rd trimester, so I was looking forward to having all the extra time to help her and be with the baby. They logged it as sick leave despite me stating and even getting a fit note from the doctor confirming I was fully fit and well enough to work. Pay ran out within a number of weeks. I was pissed, but semi-expecting it. Didn't think lockdown would be so ongoing. But without pay, it was going to be untenable for me going forward, so I had to fight it, and what I wanted fixing was my absence not being paid leave. I gave them the alternative option, though, that I could work from home, and as my personal health and job circumstances had not changed, they would have to admit they intentionally forced me to take sick leave unnecessarily over 2 years, meaning they would have to pay that back instead. They did not budge, so I sued. They did their best to ignore the suit, so I started building up my case formally, including a subject access request, where they have to give me any documents or even notes held on the system that are about me in any way. This included emails between my managers asking HR how they could fire me, and HR apologizing that they couldn't find legal grounds to unless I changed my story at any point. I.e., if I gave up the suit and continued working for them, then they would view my lawsuit as fraudulent and terminate my employment. Anyway, this backfired on them, as seeing this showed me that I could never drop the case. I won't go into the full logistics, but when it went in front of a judge, their lawyers were embarrassed. And before the case was over, they offered me a settlement to more than cover my lost wages. Even though I was never doing any of this to make money, but to just be treated fairly and respectfully as an employee, I decided to let the case finish. And at the end, without me saying anything, they doubled their first settlement offer with the condition that we agreed that we would all move on from the entire ordeal. I was allowed to work from home, and after COVID, continue to do so at my own unchallenged discretion. So I accepted. Some people would be petty and go all the way with this, but I mean, that compromise and settlement sounds pretty darn sweet, as long as OP doesn't feel too burned about continuing to work for them. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely awesome malicious compliance story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.